Hello, everyone. Tonight, we are slipping out of our own skins and into another. Picture it. Of that very bed, the Gatch bed, was invented back in the early 1800s to keep patients from sliding down when sitting up. A simple solution to a simple problem of gravity. But for you, it feels less like a comfort and more like a cage, a soft cornered prison for a body that has betrayed you. There's a faint, clean smell of antiseptic in the air, a scent that speaks of weakness and sterile hope. A dull, persistent ache throbs behind your eyes, a constant reminder of the fragile vessel you inhabit. Outside your window, the world hums along with a muted, distant roar, the sound of traffic, of a civilization that runs on schedules and electricity. But that sound is beginning to fade. It's a slow, gentle decrescendo, as if someone is turning down the volume on your entire existence. The ache in your head begins to warp, changing from a dull throb to a rhythmic, pulsing beat like a faraway drum. Your eyelids feel heavy, not with the leaden weight of sickness, but with a different kind of exhaustion. A deeper kind, an older kind, the kind of weariness that comes after a long, hard winter or a desperate. You are lying in a bed, but the sheets are too clean, too sterile, the air too quiet save for the hum of a machine and your own thin, rattling breath. A faint scent of antiseptic hangs in the air, a constant reminder of the fight you are losing. You feel the weariness not just in your muscles, but deep in your bones, a profound exhaustion that sleep can no longer fix. The doctors have given you a few months, at best. This isn't a story with a guaranteed happy ending. It's a memory, an echo from a life lived when the world was younger and much, much more savage. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. While you're at it, let us all know where you're listening from in the comments. I always find it fascinating to see what time it is for you all across the globe as we settle in. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get going tonight. The weakness is a familiar cloak, heavy on your shoulders. You try to shift your position, but even that small effort sends a fresh wave of fatigue washing over you. Your eyelids feel like lead weights, bloody battle. The smell of antiseptic is the first thing to vanish completely. It's replaced by something else, something sharp and clean and wild. Pine, the unmistakable, biting scent of pine needles under a heavy frost. Then, and as they droop, the world begins to change. It's not the sudden plunge into darkness you expect from sleep. Instead, it's a slow bleed, a dissolve from one reality into another. This strange, drifting state has comes the cold. It seeps into the room, chasing away the temperature-controlled air. It's a raw, a name, hypnagogia, that twilight frontier between waking and sleeping, where the mind, honest cold that prickles your skin, and makes the inside of your nose sting when you inhale. You are no longer ethered from logic, is free to project sounds and images from its deepest vaults. For you, it is less a projection bed. The firm, even support of the mattress is gone. Instead, you are lying on a pile of furs, thrown in more, a return. The sanitized hum of the room's air filter fades, replaced by the soft, steady over a bed of fragrant pine boughs. They crackle faintly beneath you. It's not comfortable, not in crackle of a wood fire. The sharp, clean scent of antiseptic gives way to something richer, more complex. Pine smoke, roasted meat, and the unmistakable, earthy smell of unwashed bodies sleeping nearby. You try to open your eyes, but the modern sense. It's a lumpy, rustic sort of support, the kind that leaves you with more kinks you can't. Not yet. You're not just an observer anymore. You are being poured into a new vessel. Then a garden hose. But it feels right. It feels like home. You open your eyes, and the feeling begins in your limbs. The thin, almost frail arms you've come to know are thickening, swelling with dim glow of a nightlight is gone. In its place is the deep, velvet blackness of a northern night, pierced a dormant power. Your legs, which have struggled to carry you even a few feet, now feel like mighty pillars, cored only by the shimmering, impossible curtain of the aurora borealis dancing far, far above. You can see it through a smoke hole in the roof of a great timbered hall. The air is thick with the scent of wood smoke, roasting meated with muscle and brimming with restless energy. Aches and pains of a different sort map themselves onto your flesh. Thee and the warm, slightly sour smell of sweat and unwashed bodies. You are not alone. All around you, massive dull throb of a half-healed gash on your thigh, the satisfying stiffness of worked muscle along your back. The forms are sleeping, wrapped in furs, their deep, guttural snores rising and falling in a comforting rhythm. These rattling cough in your chest is gone. In its place, you feel the vast, slow, powerful rhythm of immense lungs drawing Are Your People. You sit up. The movement is fluid, effortless. There is no creak of protest from in the cold, smoky air, a deep and effortless breath that feels like the greatest luxury you've ever known. It's like skipping the gym for a lifetime and waking up with all the gains anyway. A transformation so complete it feels both your joints, no dizzying spell of weakness. The tired, sick flesh you were just wearing has been shed like a snake, impossible and perfectly natural. Is this just a dream? A last, desperate fantasy of a failing mind? The details skin. You look down at your hands. They are not the pale, soft hands of a modern man. They are feels too sharp, the sensations too real. Historians and mystics still debate the nature of such experiences. They talk of huge, calloused, scarred. The nails are thick, the knuckles are broad, and a fine dusting of blonde hair covers racial memory of ancestral echoes carried not in stories, but in the blood itself. A genetic library of signs, boy, lived and forgotten. Perhaps the powerful forearms they're attached to. You clench your fists and feel the solid, satisfying bunch of muscle. You are just James Allison, a modern man dreaming of impossible strength. Or perhaps, in this moment, you are someone. This body is a fortress. It's a weapon. Historians still debate the origins and nature of consciousness, whether something else entirely. Someone who lived and breathed and fought and died millennia before you were ever born. With a final, jarring lurch, your eyes open. You are not in a bed. You are lying on a thick pile of furs, like memory or even identity can be encoded in our very DNA. A ghost in the machine passed down through countless generations. 4 bear and wolf pelts, you'd guess, from the texture and smell spread over a rough wooden platform. This isn't a debate. It's a reality. The dream isn't just a dream. A low, smoky fire burns in a stone-lined pit in the center of a vast, hall-like room. So remembering, you are Hunwolf. You are of the Aesir, a golden-haired, blue-eyed giant. The ceiling is lost in shadows, but you can see the massive, crudely hewn timbers that support the roof. Along from the icy plains of Nordheim, a name comes to you, unbidden, whispered on the frigid wind. Hunwolf. It feels as natural as breathing. You swing your legs over the side of the crude bed. They the walls. Other men are sleeping. Large shapes wrapped in furs, their slow, sonorous snores filling the chamber with a surprisingly comforting drone. There's no central heating, of course, just the communal warmth of dozens of snoring are long and corded with muscle. Your feet land on the cold, hard-packed dirt floor of the feasting hall. The warriors. Your utility bill, at least, is 0. You sit up, the furs sliding from your bare chest. The fire chill of it is a jolt, a glorious shock of life that travels all the way up your spine. A far light catches on the cords of muscle across your torso and the faint silvery lines of old scars. You run a hand over cry from shuffling to the bathroom in fleece-lined slippers. You stand, and your head nearly brushes the low-hanging your face, feeling the bristle of a thick blonde beard and the unfamiliar planes of a strong jaw. Your hair is long, rafters. This body is immense, built for a life of brutal hardship and simple, violent joys. There is a weight falling past your shoulders in a heavy, flaxen mane. You look down at your hands. They are huge, calloused, to it, a magnificent solidity. This is what it feels like to be truly alive, untamed, and terribly, terribly dangerous, the knuckles scarred. These are not the hands of a writer or a scholar. These are the hands of a killer. A. You wear only a loincloth of deerskin, yet the cold doesn't bother you. It feels like name bubbles up from the depths of this new consciousness. A name that fits this body, this place. Hunwolf, an old friend. You feel for the iron arm rings that encircle your biceps, a warrior's mark. You are Hunwolf. You are an easier. A warrior of a northern tribe. One of the many Germanic cold, heavy metal is reassuring. It was men like you that the Roman historian Tacitus wrote about, noting that the Germanic peoples who Roman historians like Tacitus described as towering, fierce, and possessing a terrifying love of battle. Looking at the sleeping tribes seemed almost indifferent to gold and silver, preferring iron above all for its practical, warlike applications. And looking down giants around you, you can see he wasn't exaggerating. These are your kin, your brothers in arms, asleep at your powerful frame. You can see why. This isn't a body made for counting coins. It was made for swinging in the great hall of your chieftain. The air is cold, but it doesn't bother you. It's a clean, invigorating cold, the kind that promises snow on the wind. It feels like home. You notice a fresh, healing, enax. As you stand there, soaking in the primitive sensory details of this reclaimed life, a flicker of the other you, the sick man in the clean bed, surfaces for just a moment, a pale, fragile memory. But you cut on your forearm, scabbed over, but clean. No fancy antiseptic cream, just probably a quick wipe and the hope push it down, back into the abyss of time where it belongs. That life is the dream. This is real. That infection wouldn't set in, a cornerstone of medical practice for most of human history. The last vestiges of James Allison's life. The sterile room, the beeping machines, the crushing weakness, fade like a distant, unpleasant dream. Here, you are whole. Here, you are powerful. Here, you are young. The knowledge settles into you. You step out from the smoky warmth of the great hall into the sharp, pre-dawn cold. The air is so crisp, it feels like it could shatter. A fine powdering of fresh snow dusts the ground and the thatched roofs of the huts that make up your village. It's a small settlement, huddled against the edge of a vast, dark forest of pine and fir, with a frozen river winding like a silver ribbon not far away. A few stars still glitter fiercely in a sky that is just beginning to pale in the east. The world is quiet, caught in that held breath between night and day. There's a profound stillness here, a peace you haven't felt in the other life, the modern one. There are no distant sirens, no hum of refrigerators, just the sighing of the wind in the pines and the faint lowing sound of a cow in a nearby byre. This is your home, simple, harsh, but utterly real. Then you see her. She's standing by the communal well, her silhouette dark against the slowly brightening sky. Gudrun. The name tastes of honey and steel on your tongue. She's tall for a woman of your folk, slender but strong, with a wild mane of red hair that even in this faint light seems to burn with its own fire. She doesn't see you yet, She's wrapped in a heavy wool cloak, the hood pushed back, and you watch as she breaks the ice in the wooden bucket with a small hammer before lowering it into the well. Every movement is efficient, graceful. She's not just a beauty. She possesses a fierce practical spirit that you admire even more than her striking looks. You walk towards her, your soft-soled leather boots making almost no sound on the snow-dusted earth. When you're just a few feet away, you speak her name, softly. Gudrun? She jumps, startled, and whirls around, a hand flying to her chest. But when she sees you, her tense posture relaxes into a smile that transforms her face, chasing away the stern focus and lighting her from within. Hunwolf, you move like a shadow. I almost reached for my knife. Your little eating knife would do you no good against a frost giant. You jest, grinning. Your voice is a low rumble in the quiet air. Good thing you are only a man then, and one who looks like he just rolled out of a pile of furs, she retorts, her eyes dancing with amusement. You reach her side, and the comfortable, familiar scent of her, of wood smoke, wool, and something uniquely, sweetly her own, fills your senses. In that other life, you might have held back, bound by 1,000 tiny unspoken rules of courtship. Here, life is too short and too brutal for such hesitation. You take her hand. It's cold from her task, but you chafe it between your own huge palms until warmth begins to return. Women in your tribe aren't delicate flowers. They manage households. They weave the cloth for every tunic and cloak on warp-weighted looms, a slow, painstaking process that was the backbone of textile production for millennia, and they know how to use a blade if they have to. Historians fiercely debate the extent to which women in pre-Christian Germanic societies could choose their own partners or exercise real authority. But looking at the proud, defiant set of Gudrun's jaw, you have a feeling she'd have laughed at anyone who told her she couldn't make her own choices. She was her own woman, now and always. You reach into a pouch at your belt and pull out a sprig of mistletoe, its pearly berries gleaming. It's a plant of strange power, sacred to your people. Some distant cultures, like the Druids, had even stranger ideas. Some believed the sticky white berries were the literal seed of the sky gods, which makes for a pretty awkward Christmas tradition when you think about it. You tuck the sprig into her fiery hair, and she swats your hand away, but she's smiling. Fool, it is not yet the season. With you, you say, your voice suddenly serious. It is always the season. For a long moment, you just stand there, her hand in yours, watching the sun finally begin to cast a pale, golden light over the eastern mountains. In the clean bed, in that other fading life, you were dying alone. Here, in this savage, frozen land, you are more alive than you have ever been, and you are not alone. It's a perfect, crystalline moment of peace. And then it shatters. A sound rips through the morning quiet, a sound so alien and horrifying it makes the hair on your arms stand on end. It's the raw, brazen braying of a horn, but not one of your people's horns. It's a deeper, uglier sound, and it comes not from one direction, but from all around, echoing from the dark tree line that encircles the village. Before the echoes have even faded, the screaming starts. You release Gudrun's hand instantly, your body dropping into a defensive crouch. "Get inside now!" you roar, shoving her toward the great hall. Your axe, which was leaning against the wall of the hall, is blessedly close. You snatch it up, its familiar weight a grim comfort in your hand. Men are stumbling out of the longhouse now, half-dressed, grabbing for shields and spears. The chaos is absolute. From the edge of the forest, dark figures are pouring forth. They are not Aesir. They are shorter, swarthier, their black hair and dark eyes a stark contrast to the fair features of your folk. They move in a low, slinking crouch, carrying curved swords and small, round shields. They are silent killers. Their only sound, the slap of their feet on the snow, and the whisper of steel leaving its sheath. The next few minutes are a blur of red and white, the crimson of fresh blood against the pure, clean snow. You are a whirlwind of destruction, your massive strength and years of brutal training making you a demigod of battle. The heavy axe rises and falls, cleaving through shields and bone. Men you have known your whole life fall beside you, their dying cries lost in the din. You see huts being set ablaze, the orange flames licking hungrily at the dry thatch, sending greasy black smoke into the pristine morning air. This isn't a battle. It's a slaughter. A raid designed not for conquest, but for plunder and terror. They are taking supplies, but they are also taking people. Then, through the swirling smoke and chaos, you see it. A group of them have cornered Gudrun near the back of the chieftain's hall. She fights like a cornered wolf cat, a meat spit in her hands, its sharp point keeping them at bay. But there are too many. One of them faints high, and as she parries, another ducks low, sweeping her feet out from under her. She goes down with a cry of fury, a red rage, a berserker's fury, consumes you. You bellow her name, a wordless roar of utter primal horror, and begin to carve a path through the melee toward her. An attacker turns to face you, and you don't even break stride, your axe splitting his skull with a sound like a melon breaking. Another thrusts with a spear, and you bat it aside with your forearm, not even feeling the gash it leaves, and bring the axe back around. You are 2 strides away. You see Gudrun's face, pale with terror, but still defiant. They are dragging her back toward the woods, her fingers clawing at the snow. You are almost there. From your blind spot, a heavy club, or maybe the flat of a sword, slams into the side of your head with a sickening crunch. The world explodes into a shower of white-hot stars. Your knees buckle. The mighty strength drains from your limbs as if a plug has been pulled. Your axe slips from your nerveless fingers and thuds into the bloody snow. You collapse, the world tilting crazily. The last thing you see before the darkness swallows you whole is Gudrun's face, her mouth open in a silent scream of your name as she is dragged away into the blackness of the forest. The first thing you're aware of is pain. Not a clean, sharp pain, but a thick, muddy, skull-splitting agony that seems to have soaked through the bone and into your very thoughts. It's accompanied by a nauseating wave of dizziness. You groan, and the sound is a dry croak in your throat. The second thing you notice is the cold, a deep, penetrating cold that has leached all the warmth from your body, leaving your limbs feeling numb and heavy, like logs of frozen wood. It's the kind of cold that tells you you've been lying here for a long time. Too long. With a monumental effort, you force one eye open. The world is a blurry, tilted smear of white and black, snow and ash. You push yourself up onto one elbow, and the world spins violently, forcing you to squeeze your eyes shut again until the nausea subsides. This is officially the worst hangover of all time, and you didn't even get to enjoy the mead. When you finally manage to sit up, the scene snaps into a horrifyingly clear focus. Silence. The battle is long over. The air, once filled with screams and the clang of steel, is now deathly still. All you can hear is the soft, whispering sigh of the wind and the sullen, lonely crackle of dying fires. Your village, what's left of it, is a graveyard. The huts are blackened skeletons, their thatched roofs gone, sending thin tendrils of greasy smoke into the gray, unforgiving sky. And everywhere, scattered like forgotten dolls, are the bodies of your kinsmen. Men you drank with, hunted with, fought beside. They lie contorted in the bloody snow, their fair hair stained dark, their blue eyes staring unseeingly at the clouds. You stumble to your feet, your legs unsteady. The wound on your head throbs with every beat of your heart, a grim, pulsing drum marking a rhythm of failure. You call out, your voice hoarse, "Harold? Ulf?" Nothing. You call for the chieftain, for anyone. Only the wind answers, whistling mockingly through the skeletal remains of the longhouse. They are all gone. The dead remain, but the living, the women, the children, any who might have survived the initial onslaught, have vanished. They were taken, or they fled. It doesn't matter. You are alone. A surge of the red fury from the battle tries to rise in you again. But this time it's different. It's hollow, sickened. Historians still puzzle over the legendary berserker rage of your people. Some think it was a ritualistic trance induced by mushrooms or alcohol, while others believe it was a form of self-hypnosis, and modern psychology might call it a kind of combat-induced dissociative state. For you, it was simply a fire that burned away fear. But now, looking at the cold ashes of that fire's aftermath, you feel only a profound, soul-crushing emptiness. You move through the ruins of your life, a ghost in your own home. You check every body, a grim and necessary task, turning their frozen faces to the sky. You are searching for one face in particular, dreading the discovery more than anything. But you don't find her. There is no sign of Gudrun among the slain. A tiny, desperate flicker of hope ignites in the cold darkness of your chest. They took her. She is alive. For a raider to take a captive, especially a healthy young woman, meant she had value. She wasn't just cast aside and killed. This grim logic is the only comfort you have. You make your way to where your own hut stood. It, too, is a smoldering ruin. The sleeping furs are singed. The few possessions you owned are scattered and broken. Everything is gone. There is nothing left for you here. You know you can't stay. To remain here is to die, either from the cold or from the grief that threatens to swallow you whole. First, you must tend to your wounds. The gash on your forearm is crusted with frozen blood. The cut on your head is deeper, still sticky. You stumble to the well, the place where you last saw Gudrun smile. You break the fresh layer of ice and splash the frigid water onto your face and your wounds. The shock is blinding, but it clears your head a little. In this time, there are no antibiotics, no sterile gauze. Serious wounds were often treated with a brutal practicality. They were cauterized. A healer would heat a knife or an iron in the fire until it glowed red and then press it directly into the wound to seal it. It was excruciating, but it often meant the difference between a clean scar and a deadly infection. Lacking a fire hot enough, you tear strips from a fallen warrior's tunic and bind your wounds tightly. It's a shoddy job, the world's worst first aid kit, but it will have to do. You need to find their trail. It's not difficult. A large party, burdened with plunder and captives, leaves a wide, trampled path in the snow. You find it leading away from the village, heading south. Always south. Away from the frozen lands of Nordheim and toward the warmer, softer, more decadent kingdoms of civilization. Your enemies were likely from Samaria, or maybe they were Picts from the borderlands, mercenaries who preyed on the strife between nations. Their tracks are clear in the snow. A pair of large, black ravens land on the roof of the ruined longhouse, their heads cocked, watching you with intelligent, black bead eyes. It's a curious fact that ravens have been known to follow large predators, like wolf packs, knowing that where there is a hunt, there will soon be scraps to eat. They seem to understand you are about to become a predator yourself, embarking on a long hunt. To some, their appearance would be an omen of death. To you, it is a confirmation. There is death on this trail. Hopefully, not your own. You scavenge what you can from the devastation. You find a side of dried boar meat in a half-burned storehouse, miraculously untouched. You fill a water skin from the well. Your axe is where you dropped it, its blade unnicked. You pick it up, its weight now a part of your arm. This, and the clothes on your back, is all you have in the world, and a single burning purpose. You do not look back at the bodies of your kin. There is no time for pyres, no time for the proper rituals. Your vengeance, your rescue of Gudrun, will be their funeral rite. You turn your face south into the wind and begin to walk. Each step is an agony, your head a torment. But with each step, the iron of your will hardens. You are no longer just Hunwolf, the warrior of the Aesir. You are an instrument of pure, cold-blooded revenge. The hunt has begun. The first few days are a monotonous, grinding hell. You force a relentless pace, a punishing rhythm of walk, jog, rest, repeat, fueled by gnawed strips of dried meat and icy water. The landscape is familiar, your home ground. This is Nordheim, endless rolling hills cloaked in dark, brooding forests of pine and fir, interspersed with frozen swamps and wind-scoured plains. It's a harsh, unforgiving land that breeds harsh, unforgiving men. You are a product of this place, and its brutalities are known to you. You know which snow-covered branches hide deadly falls, which ice is too thin to bear your weight, and where the wolves are likely to den. The trail of your enemies remains wide and clear. They are not trying to hide it. Their arrogance is an insult that stokes the cold fire in your gut. They believe themselves safe, that no one would be mad enough to follow them. They are wrong. You move with a single-minded purpose that erases all other concerns. The pain in your head dulls to a constant background throb. Hunger becomes a distant annoyance. The cold is merely the air you breathe. You sleep in short, shallow bursts, curled up at the base of a snow-heavy pine, your axe clutched in your hand, waking at the slightest sound. It's funny. Humans actually have a first night effect, a well-documented phenomenon where one hemisphere of the brain stays more alert when sleeping in a new or unsafe environment. For you, every night is the first night, a state of hypervigilance that is utterly exhausting, but absolutely necessary for survival. You cross the frozen river where your village drew its water, following the clumsy path the raiders crashed through the reeds on the far bank. For days, you stalk them, a vengeful ghost haunting their footsteps. You don't see them, not yet. They have too great a lead, but you feel them, a stain upon the pristine landscape ahead. The silence of the northern woods is broken only by your own soft tread and the cawing of the ever-present ravens, your grim and feathered companions. You feel a strange kinship with them. They too are scavengers, hunters, followers of death. By the fifth day, the land begins to change. The tall, proud pines of your homeland start to thin out, replaced by gnarled, leafless oaks and squat, stubborn maples. The snow cover becomes patchy, giving way to stretches of muddy, half-frozen ground. The air, while still cold, has lost its knife-sharp edge. You are traveling south, leaving the borders of Nordheim behind you. You are entering the Cimmerian hill country, a land of grim, misty valleys and sullen, rocky crags. Your people and the Sumerians are old enemies, but you feel no particular national hatred now, only a focused, personal one. The men you hunt could be from any tribe, any nation. Their identity doesn't matter, only what they have done. The trail leads you through these brooding hills, a desolate land of gray skies and perpetual twilight. You cross into the border kingdom, a lawless region of petty baronies and constant warfare, a place where mercenaries like the ones you hunt often find employment. Here, the signs of humanity become more frequent, but not in a comforting way. You see the distant smoke of fortified towns, places you dare not enter. For a lone, giant, golden-haired barbarian is as likely to be met with a crossbow bolt as a welcome. You skirt these pockets of dubious civilization, keeping to the wilds. This region has a long and bloody history, a tapestry of shifting alliances and brutal betrayals. It's a fact of life that borderlands throughout history, from the Scottish marches to the American West, are often zones of intense conflict and cultural fusion, a place where laws are weak and survival depends on strength and cunning. As you travel, you can feel the world shifting around you in a more fundamental way. It's more than just a change in trees and a temperature. The very feel of the earth beneath your feet seems different. The wild, clean spirit of the north is fading, replaced by something older, more complex, and vaguely corrupt. It's a subtle change at first. The way the shadows seem to cling a little too long in the hollows, the unnatural stillness of the forests, the way the wind sometimes whispers in tones that sound unnervingly like human voices. You are a man of the open plains and clean snows. This dense, tangled, murky landscape feels cloying, foreign. The world you knew, the world of men, is receding behind you with every step. You have left your home, your tribe, your entire frame of reference. You are becoming a creature of the wilderness, your senses sharpening, your human thoughts narrowing down to the pure animal instincts of the hunter. Track, eat, sleep, kill. That is your entire existence now. Historians debate whether early migrations were primarily driven by climate change, resource scarcity, or social conflict. For you, the answer is simple. You are driven by a singular purpose. Gudrun. The memory of her face, twisted in a silent scream as she was dragged away, is the fuel that drives you on. It overrides pain, fear, and exhaustion. You push yourself onward, deeper and deeper into a world that feels increasingly alien. You are a spear thrown from the heart of the north, and you will not stop until you have found your target. One evening, as the sun sets in a smear of sickly purple and orange, you find yourself on a high ridge overlooking a vast, dark plain that stretches to the southern horizon. The land below looks wrong. Even from this distance, you can see that the vegetation is not the kind you know. The trail of your enemies leads directly down into that strange, forbidding expanse. for the first time on this long trek, a genuine shiver of unease, a cold dread that has nothing to do with the temperature trickles down your spine. It feels like you are standing on the edge of the world, about to step off into a land that was not meant for men. You tighten your grip on your axe. This is no place for a bachelor party, that's for sure. The wild lands of men are one thing. This feels like something else entirely, something worse. You descend from the ridge as dusk bleeds into a deep, starless night. The air on the plain below is different, stagnant and heavy, with an unfamiliar, loamy smell that reminds you of freshly dug graves. The transition is stark. Behind you lie the Sumerian hills, grim and rocky, but at least natural. Before you stretches a desolate, unnerving flatland that feels like a wound on the face of the earth. The ground is soft and spongy underfoot, and the vegetation is sparse and strange, consisting of withered, grayish grasses and stunted, thorny bushes that look like skeletal hands reaching from the soil. The trail of the raiders is still easy to follow, a wide swath of trampled earth and broken plants. But now, new signs begin to appear, grim milestones on this road of despair. You find the first body just after dawn. He was an older man from your village, a skald named Bragi, who could recite the sagas of your people for hours on end. He wasn't a warrior. He must have been unable to keep the brutal pace of the march. The raiders hadn't even bothered to kill him cleanly. He was left where he fell, and the carrion birds had already been at him. There is a terrible indignity to it. You stand over his ravaged form for a long moment, a cold, hard knot tightening in your stomach. There is no time to bury him, no way to give him the honors he deserves. All you can do is take the carved boar's tusk from his belt, his mark of rank as a storyteller, and put it in your own pouch. A small, sad piece of a world that is now lost forever. You press on, a new, colder fury burning within you. This is no longer just a hunt. It's a retrieval of stolen souls, an avenging of sacrilege. Over the next day, you find 2 more bodies. A woman who was too frail for the journey, and a boy no older than 12 who had tried to fight back, a small, futile knife still clutched in his stiff hand. Each discovery is a fresh nail hammered into your resolve. The raiders are culling their captives, discarding those who slow them down. The thought of Gudrun, proud and defiant, being subjected to this forces you to walk faster, to push harder, ignoring the protesting burn in your muscles. The plain stretches on, a seemingly endless expanse of gray desolation. The sky is a permanent, leaden canopy. There are no birds here, no rabbits, no deer. The only signs of life are the tracks of your quarry and your own grim passage. It's a land utterly devoid of the normal rhythms of nature. This profound silence is more unnerving than the howl of any wolf. It's as if all healthy, living things shun this place, and with good reason. You begin to feel watched, though you see no one. It's a prickling sensation on the back of your neck, a feeling that you are crossing a threshold into a place where the laws of your world no longer apply. It's on the third day of crossing this blasted heath that you find it. The object is half-trodden into the muddy ground, glinting with a faint, silvery light. You kneel, your heart hammering against your ribs. You pry it from the muck and wipe it clean on your leather tunic. It's a locket, a simple silver locket, fashioned in the shape of a swan, that you yourself had bartered from a traveling merchant and given to Gudrun. Your fingers, clumsy and thick, struggle with the catch. When you finally get it open, you see the crude, miniature paintings inside. On one side, a lock of your own flaxen hair. On the other, a tiny, painted likeness of her face, her fiery hair, a startling splash of color against the gray world around you. She dropped it. She must have. It was a sign, a message across the bleak miles. She is alive, and she is fighting. She is leaving you a trail, a breadcrumb of hope in this wasteland of despair. It's one thing to believe she is alive, a desperate hope to fuel a desperate journey. It's another thing entirely to hold this tangible proof in your hand. The cold, hard purpose you've nurtured solidifies into something white-hot and unbreakable. All the doubt, all the exhaustion, all the creeping, nameless dread of this accursed land, it all burns away in the face of this one tiny object. You close the locket with a soft click and place it carefully in your pouch, next to the scald's tusk. It feels both impossibly heavy and lighter than air. This small act of defiance from Gudrun reminds you of stories of prisoners throughout history using whatever means they could to leave clues for potential rescuers. The SOE agents in Wobiwitu would sometimes make deliberate errors in their coded transmissions, tiny tells that would alert their handlers that they had been captured. Gudrun's locket is a much simpler, more primitive version of the same instinct: to fight, to resist, to hold on to hope, even when all seems lost. The discovery revitalizes you. It's like a shot of the strongest mead, flooding your veins with new energy. The aches and pains of the journey fade into the background. Your senses sharpen again. You examine the ground around where you found the locket more closely. You see signs of a struggle. The earth is churned up, and you find a dark, ugly stain that can only be dried blood. Not much of it, but enough. One of the captors, perhaps? Or one of the other prisoners? It's impossible to know. Historians and archaeologists still debate the nature of prehistoric warfare. Was it mostly ritualized, small-scale conflict, or were large, brutal massacres common? Looking at the trail of bodies and this evidence of a recent fight, you have a pretty good idea what the answer is. At least for these particular villains. They are not ceremonial warriors. They are butchers. You also notice something else. Intermingled with the now familiar footprints of the raiders, there is a new set of tracks. They are huge, splayed, and almost inhumanly misshapen. It's just one set of tracks, coming from the south to meet the party, and then heading south again with them. As if they were met by someone or something. The sight of those tracks sends a fresh wave of unease through you, a cold dread that even the discovery of the locket cannot completely banish. Who would live out here, in this godforsaken place, and walk with such a foot? A weird little fact floats up from the depths of your other memory. The she-dung of North Berwick, a 16th century Scottish witch, was said to have a cloven hoof instead of a left foot. Probably just propaganda, but the human mind has always been quick to associate physical deformity with evil. You rise, your hand on your axe, the silver locket, a cold, hard promise against your ribs. The hope it brings is now tinged with a new and more specific fear. You are no longer just tracking a band of human raiders. They have met with something else, something native to this dreadful land. You are getting closer. The end of this trail, you realize, will not be in some mercenary camp or border fort. It will be somewhere much, much worse. The hunt has entered its final, most terrifying stage. With the silver locket safely stowed and its cold weight a constant reminder against your skin, you move with a renewed, almost feverish energy. The dread you felt upon seeing those monstrous tracks hasn't vanished, but it's been pushed aside by the fierce certainty of your purpose. Hope is a more potent fuel than fear. You follow the path south, a highway of trampled gray grass and muddy earth, the prints of your enemies now always accompanied by that one misshapen tread that sinks deeper than all the others. The desolate plain continues for another day, an unrelenting sameness that seems designed to break the spirit. But then you feel it. A change in the wind, a subtle slope to the land, which has begun to dip downward. The horizon, once a flat, unbroken line, is now interrupted by a dark, jagged slash, as if a giant had taken a blade to the world and carved a wound in it. As you draw closer, the slash resolves into the opening of a deep, sunken valley, flanked by sheer cliffs of a dark, greasy-looking rock that seems to swallow the light. The trail, the one you have followed with such grim devotion, leads directly into this shadowy chasm. There is a profound sense of finality about the place. It feels like a gate. The Romans built vast defensive systems like Hadrian's Wall or the Limes Germanicus, hundreds of miles of walls, ditches, watchtowers, and forts to mark the absolute edge of their empire, the known world. This valley feels like a more fundamental kind of border, not one between nations, but between realities, a place where the world you know simply stops. As you stand at the precipice, a foul scent drifts up from below. It's a sickly sweet, cloying odor, like the smell of overripe fruit left to rot in a damp cellar, mingled with the metallic tang of old blood. The air that rises is heavy, warm, and stagnant, a stark contrast to the clean, cold wind of the plains. This place would have some truly legendary HOA violations, if anyone was crazy enough to try and build a settlement here. The path down is a steep, treacherous scree of loose rock and damp earth. A twisted ankle waiting to happen. There is no other way forward. With a deep breath that does nothing to steady your nerves, you begin your descent. The transition is immediate. As you slip below the level of the surrounding plain, the sounds of the upper world die away. The whisper of the wind is gone, replaced by an oppressive, profound silence. The temperature rises, the air growing thick and humid, clinging to your skin like a damp shroud. You have to watch your footing on the loose, dark shale, your hand often bracing against the cliff face, which is disturbingly damp and slightly soft to the touch, like hardened flesh. When you finally reach the valley floor, you stop, frozen in place by the sheer, unholy strangeness of your surroundings. This is no natural valley. This is a garden. But it's a garden designed by a mad god with a twisted sense of aesthetics. The floor is carpeted not with grass, but with a spongy, moss-like growth in shades of lurid purple and diseased-looking gray. There are no trees as you know them. Instead, great, fleshy stalks rise from the ground, some resembling giant, malformed fungi, others looking like cacti covered in soft, black thorns. Strange, pallid vines, as thick as your arm, snake across the ground and up the cliff walls, some of them seeming to pulse with a faint internal luminescence. The plants are the worst part. Nothing is green. The leaves of the bizarre bushes are the color of a deep bruise, with a waxy, leathery sheen. Flowers bloom here, but they are monstrous parodies. Some are shaped like gaping crimson mouths, their petals serrated like teeth. Others hang from their stems like the cowls of headless monks, colored a venomous yellow. The entire landscape feels like a fever dream, something coughed up from the dregs of a nightmare. Scientists now debate the psychological phenomenon of the uncanny valley, the revulsion we feel toward things that are almost, but not quite, human, like a realistic robot or a CGI character that's just a little bit off. You're experiencing a version of that now, but on a vast geological scale. This place is an uncanny valley of botany. It is absolutely silent. There are no birds singing, no insects buzzing, not even the rustle of a mouse in the undergrowth. This total absence of sound is perhaps the most terrifying thing of all. You feel a yawn building, a response to the stress and the thick air, but you stifle it. An odd fact from the other life surfaces. While lots of animals yawn, contagious yawning is surprisingly rare, mostly seen in highly social animals like humans, chimps, and even dogs, suggesting it's tied to empathy. You feel a distinct lack of empathy for whatever cultivated this place. The silence is so absolute that you can hear the blood pounding in your ears, a frantic, hammering beat against the void. You crouch behind a large, mushroom-like growth that smells faintly of cinnamon and decay. your hand gripping the handle of your axe so tightly your knuckles are white. You desperately wish you had a skilled botanist with you to explain this impossible ecosystem, or maybe just a man with a very, very large flamethrower. That might be more practical. The wide trail of the raiders continues on, a clear path through the grotesque flora, heading deeper into the shadowed heart of the valley. The monstrous, misshapen footprints are still there, looking horribly at home in this alien environment. You are at the threshold of the true horror. The long, desperate pursuit is over. The grim march through familiar lands, the bleak trek across the desolate plain, that was all just the prelude. This is the destination. This is where they brought Gudrun and the other captives. Every instinct screams at you to turn back, to flee this unnatural place and never look behind you. But the cold weight of the swan locket against your chest anchors you. You are a hunter, and your prey is just ahead. Stealing your nerves, you rise from your crouch and begin to move silently, deeper into the ghastly, silent garden, a place that feels like the end of the world. You move deeper into the valley, your soft boots making no sound on the spongy purple moss. The silence presses in on you, thick and suffocating. Every few steps, you freeze, listening, but there is nothing to hear. The air is still and heavy with the sickly sweet perfume of decaying blossoms. The path the raiders made is easy to follow. A line of crushed, weeping plants and churned up earth cutting through the bizarre landscape. You stay to the side of it, using the grotesque flora for cover, a hulking shadow slipping between fleshy stalks and thorny, black-leafed bushes. The valley narrows, the dark, greasy cliffs closing in, making the sky a thin, pale ribbon far above. The dim light filtering down seems to get caught and absorbed by the alien vegetation, casting everything in a perpetual twilight. The sheer variety of botanical nightmares is astounding. There are plants that look like clusters of pale, grasping hands, and others that resemble arrangements of bleached bones. The only saving grace is that this place seems so obviously hostile to life. There's little risk of tripping over a garden gnome. Probably. It's in this deeper, more shadowed part of the valley that you first see them. At first glance, they appear to be enormous flowers, dotting the landscape like monstrous crimson poppies. Each one stands taller than a man, on a thick, pale green stem that looks more like a serpent's body than a plant stalk. The head of the flower is a massive, bowl-shaped bloom of the most vibrant, shocking red. The petals are thick and fleshy, with a texture like raw meat, and they curl inward to form a deep, dark cup at the center. They are, in their own monstrous way, almost beautiful. Their blood-red hue, a startling slash of color in the muted palette of the valley. You crouch behind a growth of what looks like twisted, petrified coral, observing them. They are motionless, silent sentinels standing guard in this impossible garden. You count at least a dozen of them scattered across the path ahead. it would be impossible to get past without coming dangerously close to one. There's a strange historical factoid buried deep in the lore of ancient Assyria, of a legendary poison garden cultivated by kings, where simply inhaling the fumes from the plants could be fatal. You get the distinct feeling that these crimson flowers are far more dangerous than just their perfume. Your caution proves well-founded. As you watch, a movement catches your eye. Something is scurrying through the undergrowth near the base of the nearest crimson flower. It's a lizard-like creature, about the size of a small dog, with sickly white skin and a multitude of spindly legs. It scurries out from under a waxy, black-leafed shrub and stops for a moment, its head darting back and forth. You tense, wondering if the creature has sensed you. But it's not you it's aware of. It's the flower. What happens next unfolds with a speed that is both silent and shocking. The giant crimson bloom, which you had assumed was just a stationary plant, moves. It doesn't just sway in some non-existent breeze. It deliberately bends. The thick, snake-like stalk dips down with a horrifying, fluid grace, lowering the massive red cup toward the scuttling creature. The lizard thing seems to be mesmerized, paralyzed by the flower's approach. It stands frozen, its multifaceted eyes fixed on the descending blossom. When the cup of the flower is just above the creature, it opens. The blood-red petals, which you thought were solid, peel back further, unfurling to reveal a nightmarish interior. The cup is not a cup at all. It is a mouth. It's lined with what look like rows of pale, needle-like stamens that glisten with a clear, viscous fluid. In the center, there is a dark, fleshy orifice. With a movement too fast to properly track, a long, sticky, tongue-like appendage whips out from the central orifice, wraps around the paralyzed lizard thing, and yanks it upward. The creature gives a single, silent, frantic wriggle of its many legs, and then it is gone, pulled into the flower's fleshy maw. The petals close up again with a soft, wet squelch that is nauseatingly loud in the dead silence. The flower straightens back up on its serpentine stalk, as placid and still as it was before, as if nothing has happened. It looks exactly like it did before, except now you think you can see a faint rhythmic pulsing in the thick stem, like a throat that is swallowing. You remain frozen behind your cover, a cold sweat breaking out on your skin. Your heart is pounding a frantic, terrified rhythm against your ribs. These aren't just flowers. They are predators. They are sentient, carnivorous sentinels guarding this hellish valley. You have a newfound and profound respect for Venus flytraps, which suddenly seem as menacing as a stuffed teddy bear in comparison. The fact is, carnivorous plants are not that uncommon in our world. They typically grow in places with poor soil, and evolving to trap and digest insects is a clever way to get the nutrients they need. But this is on another level entirely. This is not about supplementing a diet with a few flies. This is about devouring anything that moves, The full, horrific reality of your situation crashes down on you. The trail left by the raiders weaves directly through this grove of man-eating flowers, and they pass through it safely. How? Were the flowers sated, or did they have some way of controlling them? Perhaps some form of tribute was paid. The thought is a sickening one. Did they feed some of the captives to these crimson abominations? The thought of Gudrun facing such a fate is a physical blow, and you have to clench your jaw to keep from crying out in rage and horror. Historians still debate the purpose of some ancient structures like Stonehenge or the Nazca Lines. Were they calendars, ritual sites, or something else entirely? Looking at this grove of predator plants, you can't help but feel you're looking at something that is both a natural defense system and a site for a horrifying alien ritual. You are trapped. To go forward, you must pass through the hunting ground of these silent crimson killers. To go back is unthinkable. The silver locket feels heavy in your pouch, a dead weight of responsibility. You are no longer just an avenger. You are a rescuer, and Gudrun is somewhere beyond this silent, blood-red gauntlet. You grip your axe, the familiar weight of it, the only sane thing in this nightmare world. Stealth was always the plan, but now it's not just a strategy, it's the only conceivable way to survive. For a long moment, you are as frozen as the lizard thing was. The sight of that crimson flower, a silent, beautiful predator, has fundamentally rewired your understanding of this place. This isn't just a valley of strange plants. It's a baited trap, a living charnel house. Every instinct you possess, honed by a life in the brutal but natural wilderness of the North, is screaming at you that you are out of your depth. A polar bear, a pack of wolves, a Sumerian warband, these are dangers you understand, dangers you can face with steel and sinew. But how do you fight a garden? You shrink back behind the petrified coral, trying to make yourself as small as possible. The air suddenly feels 10 times heavier, the silence 10 times more menacing. You need to move forward, but the path is guarded by those placid red sentinels. Each one is a silent, waiting mouth. You look from one to the next, trying to map a path between them, judging the distances. The gap between those two over there seems wider. Maybe, if you are fast enough. And then a sound breaks the unholy quiet. It's a heavy, rhythmic thump, thump, thump. The sound of something massive walking with a slow, ponderous gait. It's coming from deeper in the valley, heading in your general direction. Instantly, you press yourself flat against the spongy ground, praying that the bizarre flora offers enough concealment for a man your size. Peering through a gap in the twisted coral, you see it. The source of the sound is the source of the tracks. He is a grotesque caricature of a man, a lumbering, powerfully built brute with a low, sloping brow and long, ape-like arms that dangle almost to his knees. His skin is a pale, grubby gray, and matted black hair hangs in greasy clumps around his face and across his broad, stooped shoulders. He is almost naked, save for a filthy breechclout of some unidentifiable hide. This is not one of the raiders. This is something else. something born of this blighted land. He is the missing piece of the puzzle, the creature who met the war party on the plain. He looks like a reconstruction of a Neanderthal, but cruder, more bestial. Anthropologists still debate whether Neanderthals were shuffling, knuckle-dragging brutes or intelligent, compassionate relatives who buried their dead with flowers. Looking at this creature, you feel a strong urge to vote for knuckle-dragging brute. There's no spark of intelligence in his small, deep-set eyes. There is only a dull, animal cunning. He lumbers past your hiding place, so close you can smell his sour, unwashed scent. He's carrying a large dark stone bowl, which he handles with a clumsy reverence. He stops near one of the blood-red flowers, not the one that ate the lizard, but another one nearby. He sets the bowl down and then, with a low grunt, begins to, well, it looks like he's grooming the plant. He uses his thick, dirty fingers to pick away strands of the purple moss from its base, clearing the ground around its serpent-like stem with all the delicate grace of a bear trying to perform brain surgery. As you watch this bizarre display of demonic gardening, another figure emerges from the gloom. This new arrival moves with a chilling, unnatural silence. Where the beast man is ponderous and heavy, this being is slender, unnervingly tall, and moves with a flowing, boneless grace that makes your blood run cold. It, for you can't bring yourself to think of it as a he, is humanoid, but only in the loosest sense. It's draped in flowing, voluminous robes the color of old parchment, and a deep cowl shadows its face completely. The hands that emerge from the wide sleeves are long, thin, and possess one too many joints per finger. They are a pale, waxy white like the roots of a plant that has never seen the sun. This must be the master, the gardener. The brute immediately grovels when he senses the master's presence, dropping to his belly and pressing his face into the moss, whining like a whipped dog. It's the worst manager-employee relationship you've ever seen, and you've seen some bad ones. The robed master pays him no mind. It glides to the flower the servant was tending and reaches out one of those long, multi-jointed fingers, tracing the edge of a fleshy red petal with a disturbing tenderness. You are seeing the true power in this valley. Not just a monster, but an intelligence. It's one thing to face a mindless beast, another entirely to confront a thinking, planning entity, especially one so obviously alien. Carl Linnaeus, the great 18th century botanist, created a system to classify all known life, giving the world a sense of order. This creature, you suspect, has its own system of classification, and humans probably fall somewhere between pest and fertilizer. The robed figure turns its cowled head slowly, surveying its garden. For a terrifying second, its hidden gaze sweeps in your direction, and you cease to breathe, every muscle in your body locked tight. But the gaze passes over you without pausing. You are just another misshapen lump in a valley full of them. Then the master makes a soft, rustling sound, barely audible. It's not a word. It's more like the sound of dry leaves skittering across pavement. Immediately, the beast man on the ground grunts in understanding and scrambles to his feet. This is a strange form of communication, but not unheard of. Many of Earth's creatures communicate without sound, using pheromones, complex chemical signals, to convey everything from danger to desire. It's how an entire ant colony can function as a single organism. The master and its servant seem to have a similar, if much more primitive, arrangement. The brute picks up the stone bowl and shambles over to another one of the red flowers. He dips the bowl into a sluggish black stream that runs nearby and then pours the dark water at the flower's base. Your mind struggles to process the implications. These creatures, this master and servant, they cultivate this garden of horrors. The raiders who took Gudrun didn't just stumble into this valley. They came here deliberately. This was their destination. They brought their captives here as a delivery, a tribute. Your quest, which began as a simple, brutal matter of revenge and rescue, has just spiraled into something far more complex and cosmically terrifying. You aren't just fighting men anymore. You are trespassing in the domain of a non-human entity and its monstrous attendant. Suddenly, your big axe feels woefully inadequate. You feel like you brought a knife to a nightmare fight. The scale of your problem has just increased 1,000-fold. You remain motionless, pressed into the spongy earth for what feels like an eternity. The robed master and its brutish servant eventually move on, their slow progress marked by the beast man's thudding footsteps as they proceed deeper into the valley, tending to their ghastly flock of killer flowers. The sight of them, the alien grace of the one and the hulking bestiality of the other, has left you shaken to your core. The rules of your world have been completely upended. This valley operates on a logic that is profoundly and terrifyingly alien. Once they are out of sight and the heavy silence has descended once more, you finally allow yourself a slow, shallow breath. You have to reassess everything. The raiders weren't just passing through. They brought their captives here, which means Gudrun and the other survivors are not being marched to some distant slave market. They are somewhere in this valley. That knowledge is both a source of horror and a spark of tactical hope. Your search is no longer a blind pursuit across a continent. It is now confined to this single, terrible location. You must find where they are being held. Following the master and servant is too risky. You need to scout, to find their lair. Using the path the raiders carved is also out of the question. It's too open, and it weaves right through the hunting ground of the crimson flowers. Your only option is to stick to the edges of the valley, using the deep shadows where the cliffs meet the valley floor and the thickest clumps of grotesque vegetation for cover. It's a slower, more difficult route, but infinitely safer. You begin to move, a slow, painstaking crawl. Your progress is measured in inches. Every shadow is a potential hiding place. Every bizarre plant, a piece of alien cover. You move with a preternatural quietness that belies your great size. Every sense strained to its absolute limit. You listen for the slightest sound, watch for the smallest movement, smell the air for any change in the foul, sweet scent that hangs over this place. You're like a big, blonde ninja on the world's worst stealth mission. It's ironic. You, a warrior accustomed to the frank brutality of open battle, are now forced into a game of silent, deadly hide-and-seek. After nearly an hour of this nerve-wracking advance, you see it. Tucked into a recess in the cliff face, almost perfectly hidden by a dense curtain of those thick, pale, pulsing vines, is a dark opening. A cave. It's the only feature you've seen in the valley that isn't a plant or a rock. A primitive instinct, the same one that drove your distant ancestors to seek shelter in caves, tells you that this must be their den. Caves, throughout human history, have served as homes, tombs, and sacred ritual sites. The Lascaux Cave in France, with its stunning prehistoric paintings, shows that even 17,000 years ago, humans saw caves as places of profound importance. This one, you suspect, is a place of imprisonment and dread. You find a high vantage point on a rocky ledge across from the cave mouth, concealed within a thicket of the thorny black bushes. From here, you have a clear, if distant, view of the entrance. Now, you must wait. Patience is a virtue you have in short supply, but your life and Gudrun's depends on it now. You settle in, your axe resting across your lap, and you watch. Your patience is rewarded as evening bleeds into the deep, perpetual twilight of the valley floor. The hulking beast man returns, his form a dark, shambling silhouette against the pallid vines. He is not alone. He is dragging two figures behind him. Even from this distance, you recognize the tattered remains of the simple wool clothing of your people. They are two of the captive women from your village. He shoves them roughly through the vine curtain and into the cave. A moment later, a faint, flickering light blossoms within the darkness, casting moving shadows against the vines. They've lit a torch or a small fire. A low, guttural growl echoes from the cave, followed by a woman's terrified shriek. The sound cuts through you like a knife. The beast man is tormenting them. The red rage, the berserker fury you felt during the raid on your village, begins to smolder within you. Your hand tightens on your axe handle, and it's all you can do to not leap from your hiding place and charge across the clearing, roaring your defiance. But you force it down, crushing the impulse with cold, hard logic. To attack now would be suicide. You would be cut down before you took 10 steps, and their fate would be sealed forever. You are one man against a monster, its alien master, and a garden of carnivorous horrors. No. You must wait. You must watch. You must understand. Later, the beast man emerges from the cave, gnawing on a large, pale, tuber-like root. It's one of the weird things about extreme survival. You end up eating things that would make a goat vomit. There's a persistent rumor that the elite commandos in the SAS are taught to eat insects and even eyeballs to survive. At least the brute seems to have found a local delicacy that isn't human. He sits on a rock near the entrance, acting as a guard, his dull eyes staring blankly into the gloom. He is the jailer. Through a gap in the vine curtain, you catch a fleeting glimpse of the scene inside. In the flickering torchlight, you see them. The survivors of your village. There are maybe a dozen of them, huddled together at the back of the cave, their faces pale with exhaustion and terror. And among them, her red hair, a splash of defiant color, even in the gloom, is Gudrun. She isn't crying. Her face is set in a mask of grim determination, her arm around a weeping younger girl. Seeing her alive, seeing that fire still in her eyes, sends a surge of adrenaline and profound relief through you. Your desperate hope has not been in vain. She is here. She is alive. The sight steals your resolve and clears your mind. The blind rage cools and sharpens into a deadly point. This is no longer an abstract mission. It's a hostage situation. You have found them. Now, you must find a way to get them out. You look at the Beastman guard, his massive, powerful form a clear obstacle. You look at the crimson flowers, their deadly mouths waiting patiently in the gloom. You look at the dark, silent valley, the domain of a creature from a nightmare. The odds are impossible. The situation is hopeless, and yet you are Hunwolf. You have your axe, and Gudrun is waiting. Hope, as foolish as it seems, is not yet lost. You are a statue carved from shadows, perched on your rocky ledge. The initial, searing relief of seeing Gudrun alive has cooled, crystallizing into a diamond-hard point of tactical focus. The red rage is a fire banked low, its heat converted into pure, cold energy for the task ahead. You cannot afford emotion now. Emotion makes you clumsy. Emotion gets you killed. Now is the time for a hunter's cruel patience. You spend the long twilight hours in observation. The Roman legions, masters of conquest, had their exploratores, elite scouts who would spend days or weeks behind enemy lines, mapping terrain, gauging enemy strength, and noting routines. They were the key to countless victories, their intelligence worth more than 1,000 swords. You have become a one-man reconnaissance unit, and this bizarre valley is your battlefield. You study it until its unnatural landscape is as familiar to you as the forests of your homeland. Your primary focus is the guard, the hulking beast man. His name is probably something unpronounceable and involves a lot of grunting, so you just think of him as the brute. For a jailer, he's remarkably lazy. He does not patrol. He sits on his rock, occasionally scratches himself with a profound lack of decorum, and stares into the gloom. He relies entirely on the crimson flowers and the oppressive silence of the valley to be his early warning system. He is arrogant in his security, and that is a weakness you can exploit. The world's worst employee, this one. He'd definitely be scrolling through his phone if he had one. Twice more, the robed master emerges from the deeper parts of the valley to survey its domain. It doesn't come near the cave, instead gliding silently among the flowers, its multi-jointed fingers occasionally caressing a blood-red petal. The brute immediately prostrates himself each time, a display of groveling terror. There's a clear chain of command, even if the communication is utterly alien. Academics still debate the complexity of pre-linguistic communication in early human societies. Whether it was a simple series of grunts and gestures, or a more nuanced system that we simply cannot comprehend. Watching the master direct the brute with a mere rustle of its robes, you're inclined to think there's a complexity here that is beyond your understanding. Time stretches and distorts in the waiting. There's a strange theory that time feels like it passes faster as we get older because each minute is a progressively smaller fraction of our total lived experience. For you, in this state of heightened deathly focus, time has slowed to a crawl. Each pulse of the luminous vines, each shift of the brute on his rock is an event. You absorb every detail. You note the exact distance from your perch to the clump of fleshy, mushroom-like growths. You map a path from there to the shadowy recess behind a petrified tree. You time the brute's attention span. He seems to lose focus and stare into space for long stretches. And you study the flowers. You watch them from dawn until dusk. If such terms even apply in this gloomy chasm, they seem most active, or at least most alert, when the faint light from above is at its brightest. They don't seem to react to your scent, but then again, you're downwind. The lizard thing that fell prey to one was moving quickly, erratically. What about slow, deliberate movement? You wager your life on it that their predatory senses are tuned to rapid motion, the frantic scurrying of prey. A slow crawl, blending in with the natural, crawling pace of the valley's own grotesque life, might just get you past them. They're like T-Rexes from a movie, but, much more floral and with better hygiene. A plan begins to form in your mind. A desperate, razor's edge gambit born of observation and necessity. It has 4 parts, each one more dangerous than the last. First, the approach. You must leave your high perch and descend to the valley floor. You will move only when the brute's attention is wandering. You will use the path you've already mapped in your mind, a slow-motion crawl from one piece of alien cover to the next, until you are positioned in the deep shadows of the cliff face, just out of his line of sight near the cave. Second, the guard. This is the most critical and dangerous step. You cannot fight him in the open. You cannot make a sound that will alert the flowers or the master. You must lure him away from the entrance. You'll pick up a loose rock, the valley is full of them, and toss it into the thicket of black-thorned bushes on the far side of him. The sound should startle him. His brutish curiosity, combined with his lazy confidence, will hopefully compel him to go investigate the noise. It's a risk. He might just grunt and ignore it. But if he does go, you will have your window. While his back is turned, you will close the distance with deadly speed and silence. Your axe must be a single, killing blow. There can be no struggle, no outcry. Third, the rescue. With the guards silenced, you will slip through the vine curtain. Inside, you must be a whisper of hope, not a clarion call of battle. You must get to Gudrun, calm the others, and lead them out. Panic is your enemy. A single scream could bring the entire garden down upon you. You touch the pouch where her locket rests, its cold metal a grounding force. Fourth, the escape. This is the part that solidifies the plan from a suicide mission into a slim possibility. You cannot retreat the way you came, leading a dozen frightened, weakened people back through the field of man-eating flowers. You've been studying the cliffs behind the cave. The rock is dark and greasy, yes, but it's not sheer. About 50 feet to the left of the cave entrance, there's what looks like a deep fissure, a natural chimney running up the cliff face. It's riddled with ledges and handholds. It will be a treacherous, exhausting climb, especially for the weak and terrified captives. But it leads up and out of this accursed valley. It is your only real path to freedom. The plan is insane. It relies on a dozen variables, any one of which could fail and doom you all. But it's a plan. It is better than waiting here for the master to decide it's feeding time. The long watch is over. Now, you need only wait for the deepest point of the valley's night, when the light is at its dimmest and the brute is at his most lethargic. You are an instrument of vengeance honed to a razor's edge. You are a whisper of hope in a valley of death, and you are ready to make your move. The time comes, not as a decision, but as a subtle shift in the already dim light, a deepening of the gloom that tells you this is the darkest the valley will get. It is the valley's equivalent of midnight, the nadir of its waking cycle. The brute on his rock has grown sluggish, his head lolling occasionally, his attention fixed on nothing at all. It is now or never. You do not stand. You flow. You pour yourself over the edge of your rocky perch, not with a jump, but with a controlled slide. Your powerful muscles absorbing the impact without a whisper of sound. Your boots touch the spongy, purple moss of the valley floor, and the world changes. Up on the ledge, you are an observer, a strategist. Down here, you are a participant. You are prey. The air is thicker, the cloying scent of sweet rot filling your nostrils. The grotesque plants loom over you like silent watching giants. You are a trespasser in a hostile world, and you have never felt more alone. Your crawl begins. It is not a crawl of speed or urgency, but a study in absolute, agonizing slowness. Every muscle in your body is screaming from the strain of controlled glacial movement. You move your hand forward, placing it deliberately and silently. You test the ground, ensuring there are no hidden twigs or loose stones that might make a sound. Only then do you draw your body forward, a few inches at a time, a hulking serpent of flesh and vengeful purpose. It's the kind of painstaking movement that ancient hunters must have used, cloaking themselves in the rhythms of the natural world to get close to their prey. Historians sometimes call this still hunting, a method where patience is a far deadlier weapon than speed. You are testing that theory now, with your own life as the wager. Your first objective is a large, fleshy, mushroom-like growth 20 feet away. The ground between you and it is open, dotted only with the low grayish moss. The brute is on your left, just at the edge of your peripheral vision. His head is down. You move. It takes you nearly 5 minutes to cross that short distance. 5 minutes of clenched teeth and burning muscles. Every fiber of your being screaming at you to hurry. But you fight the impulse. You are a shadow. You are a slow, drifting mist. You reach the shelter of the fungal growth and pause. Your cheek pressed against its cool, clammy-feeling skin. It smells, faintly and bizarrely, of damp earth and cloves. This place would get a truly abysmal 1-star review on any travel website. Poor lighting, terrible smell, hostile flora, and the staff is a literal monster. You risk a glance toward the brute. He hasn't moved. Your path now takes you parallel to the line of crimson flowers. This is the gauntlet. This is where a single misstep means a silent, horrifying death. As you begin your next crawl toward a thicket of what looks like petrified seaweed, you pass within 10 feet of one of the scarlet sentinels. Its presence is a physical force. The sickly sweet perfume is overpowering here, almost making your eyes water. You can see the texture of its blood-red petals, the fine veins that run through them, the way they curl inward toward that dark, waiting maw. You can feel a faint warmth radiating from it, the heat of some unnatural digestive process. Your human eyes, even fully adjusted to the gloom, are pitiful things. You lack the tapetum lucidum, the reflective layer behind the retina that gives cats and wolves and other nocturnal hunters their superior night vision and that terrifying glow. You have to rely on feel, on scent, on pure instinct to guide you past the danger. You inch forward, keeping your body as low to the ground as possible. Your heart is a frantic bird trapped in your ribs. You feel an insane, tickling urge to sneeze, a biological betrayal of the highest order. You press your nose into the damp moss of the ground, stifling it, praying it passes. As you do, you swear you see one of the crimson petals twitch. Just a tiny, infinitesimal movement. Is it reacting to you? Or was it just your overstrained imagination? You freeze, every muscle locked, not even daring to breathe. The moment stretches into an eternity. Nothing happens. The flower remains still. You force yourself to move again. A current of pure ice water washing through your veins. Academics who study predatory behavior still debate the nuance of how predators perceive their prey, trying to understand what specific triggers, sound, movement, silhouette, initiate an attack. You are hoping, betting your life, that a slow-moving, ground-hugging shape does not register on these things as food. You are trying to be a rock, a log, a part of the dead landscape. You continue your agonizing progress from cover to cover, from the petrified seaweed to the shadow of a pulsing, vine-covered rock. From there to the base of a plant that looks disturbingly like a cluster of skeletal hands. The brute occasionally grunts in his sleep, the sound shockingly loud in the silence. Each time, you freeze, your heart stopping. But he never stirs to full wakefulness. He is a terrible, terrible guard, and you feel a flicker of grim gratitude for his incompetence. Finally, after a small eternity, you make it. You are tucked into the deep shadow of the cliff face, hidden behind a jagged spur of black rock, no more than 30 feet from the cave entrance. The brute is almost directly in front of you, his broad, filthy back to you. The most dangerous part of your infiltration is complete. You have slipped through the nightmare garden. You have passed unseen under the gaze of the crimson flowers. You are a ghost, a whisper, a silent death waiting in the wings. You are a coiled spring, every ounce of your power held in agonizing check. You allow yourself one single, slow breath, calming the frantic hammering of your heart. You find a loose, fist-sized rock at your feet. Perfect. The first stage of the plan is over. Now comes the second. The rock feels coarse and heavy in your palm, a dense, primitive tool for a simple, brutal purpose. Your moment of stillness is over. Action is now required. You take a breath, aim not with your eyes, but with your whole body, and you throw. It's not a hard throw, just a firm, underhand lob. The rock arcs silently through the gloomy air and lands exactly where you intended, in the middle of a dense thicket of black-thorned bushes about 20 feet to the right of the brute. The sound it makes is perfect. A sudden, sharp thwack rustle that is utterly alien to the valley's oppressive silence. The brute's head snaps up. He emits a low, questioning grunt. For a tense second, you think he's going to ignore it, that all your agonizing stealth was for nothing. He's no Sherlock Holmes, but even he seems to understand that things aren't supposed to make sudden noises in this valley unless they are being eaten. He pushes himself up from his rock with a groan, his massive frame unfolding slowly. He is huge, even bigger up close than you'd imagined, a mountain of sullen, slovenly muscle. He picks up a crude, heavy club of what looks like petrified wood that was leaning against the rock and begins to shamble toward the source of the sound. His back is now completely turned to you. This is your chance. This is the whole gambit. You don't just stand up. You explode from the shadows. The slow, creeping pace of your approach is shed like a skin, revealing the lightning-fast predator beneath. You cover the 30 feet between your hiding spot and the cave entrance in a few silent, gigantic strides. You are a wraith of vengeance, your feet barely seeming to touch the spongy ground. The brute is still 10 feet away from the bush, his attention entirely focused ahead. He has no idea that death is approaching from behind. You raise your axe high, the muscle in your shoulders and back coiling like a serpent. The plan is a single, clean, silent blow to the base of the skull. A perfect, swift execution. Reality, however, is rarely so neat. Just as you bring the axe down, he must sense something, some subtle shift in the air, a hunter's sixth sense. He starts to turn, his head coming around. Your perfectly aimed blow lands not on the back of his skull, but on his thick, meaty shoulder. The axe bites deep, with a sickening wet crunch of cleaving flesh and bone. A strangled roar of pain and fury is ripped from his throat, but it's choked off as he stumbles forward from the force of the blow, crashing face first into the dirt. The axe is wrenched from your grasp, still embedded in his shoulder. He is not dead. He is wounded, enraged, and fighting. This is a disaster. He rolls over with terrifying speed, his face a twisted mask of agony, his good hand scrabbling for the club he dropped. You don't hesitate. You dive onto him, your massive weight driving him back down. There can be no more noise. Your left hand clamps over his mouth and nose, trying to smother the roars that are bubbling in his chest. His hot, foul breath washes over your hand. The smell is unbearable, a nauseating stench of rot and unwashed filth. His one good arm, corded with inhuman strength, slams into your ribs, and the impact is like being hit by a battering ram. Stars flash in your vision. This isn't some fancy duel with rules of engagement and a cheering crowd. This is a primitive, life-or-death grapple in the dirt. It is a throwback to a far more ancient kind of violence. The ancient Greeks had a martial art called pancration, a brutal, no-holds-barred contest where only biting and eye gouging were forbidden. Right now, you'd happily bite this monster if it would give you an edge. He thrashes beneath you, a force of pure, animalistic power. Your hand is slipping from his mouth. You see his beady, hate-filled eyes glaring up at you in the gloom. You use your free hand to drive your fist hard into the side of his head. The blow lands with a dull, solid thud. He grunts, his body shuddering. You hit him again and again. It's ugly, desperate work. You feel his thick skull beneath your knuckles, his struggles weakening slightly. It's a grim contest of stamina and raw, brutal strength. Historians and archaeologists often find ancient skeletons with healed and unhealed fractures, clear evidence of interpersonal violence. Looking at the brute's misshapen face, you can tell this isn't the first time he's taken a fist to the skull. You intend for it to be the last. His thrashing is slowing. His struggles are becoming weaker, more sporadic. His one good arm claws at your back, but the blows lack their earlier force. Seizing the moment, you shift your weight, putting a knee on his chest to pin him, and with your now free hands, you grip the handle of your axe, which is still lodged horribly in his shoulder. With a grunt of effort, you wrench it free. A fresh, hot gush of dark blood spills over your hands. The brute gives a final, shuddering gasp. Before he can even think to scream, you reverse the axe in your grip and drive the sharpened point of the haft, the spike opposite the blade, down into his throat. There is a wet, tearing sound, and then silence. His body goes limp beneath you, a dead weight. You collapse onto him for a second, your chest heaving, every muscle screaming in protest. The sudden silence is as shocking as the violence that preceded it. The valley is still. The flowers have not stirred. The master has not appeared. You have succeeded. His employment has been permanently terminated. With a final surge of adrenaline, you roll off the corpse. You can't leave him here. You grab the brute's ankles and drag the heavy body into the deepest shadows behind the rock where he was sitting. The effort is immense, and it leaves you trembling. You retrieve his crude club and your axe, wiping the blade on the purple moss, though nothing can truly clean it. You stand there for a moment, a bloody, panting specter in the gloom, listening, still nothing. You turn and look at the curtain of pale, pulsing vines covering the mouth of the cave. Stage 2 is complete. The sentry is gone. But your work is not finished. It has barely begun. The adrenaline from the brutal fight fades, leaving a cold, clear focus in its place. You are smeared with the brute's dark blood and the filth of the valley floor, a grim camouflage for the final stages of your mission. Every second you linger out here increases the risk of discovery. You approach the entrance to the cave, your axe now feeling like a natural extension of your arm. Its weight, a familiar comfort in this alien world. The thick, pale vines that cover the cave mouth are clammy and slightly rubbery to the touch. They pulse with a slow, faint, rhythmic light, like a sleeping beast's heartbeat. There's a strange phenomenon known as bioluminescence, where living organisms from fireflies to deep-sea fish can produce their own light through a chemical reaction. You've never seen a bioluminescent plant before, but in this valley, anything seems possible. You gently part the vine curtain, creating a narrow slit just wide enough to peer through. The scene inside is one of quiet despair. A single, smoky torch, jammed into a crack in the rock wall, casts a flickering, inadequate light. About a dozen of your people are huddled at the back of the small cave. They are thin, dirty, and hollow-eyed, their faces etched with the deep lines of trauma and exhaustion. Some are weeping silently. Others stare into space with a look of shattered emptiness. A few are asleep, finding a brief respite in unconsciousness. And then you see her, Gudrun. She isn't weeping. She is kneeling beside the young girl you saw her comforting before, whispering to her, her expression a mixture of fierce tenderness and grim resolve. Even in this squalor, exhausted and captive, she possesses an unbending strength that makes your heart ache. She is a flame that refuses to be extinguished. You need to get her attention without startling the others. Panic would be fatal. You slip through the vines, a massive, blood-splattered figure emerging silently from the shadows. A few of the captives see you, and their eyes widen in terror. A woman opens her mouth to scream, but before any sound can escape, you press a single finger to your lips, a universal gesture of silence that seems to transcend culture and time. Your gaze is intense, pleading. Miraculously, she understands, and she stifles her scream with a trembling hand. Your eyes find Gudrun's across the small cavern. For a moment, she just stares, her mind refusing to believe what she's seeing. You must look like a demon from one of the old sagas, risen from some hell to haunt them. Disbelief gives way to shock, then to a flood of pure, unadulterated hope that illuminates her face from within. A single tear traces a path through the grime on her cheek. You take a step toward her, and it's like a spell is broken. She scrambles to her feet and rushes to you, not with a cry, but with a choked, silent sob. She buries her face in your chest, her body trembling uncontrollably. You wrap your arms around her, holding her tight, a moment of profound, impossible reunion in the heart of a nightmare. The familiar scent of her, even through the fear and filth, is an anchor in a mad world. The guard, she whispers, her voice raspy, is dealt with. You whisper back, your voice a low rumble. We have to go. Now. She pulls back, her eyes quickly assessing the situation. She is a warrior's daughter, and her mind immediately grasps the danger. They are weak, she says, her gaze sweeping over the other captives. Some can barely walk. They will have to climb, you tell her, your voice low and urgent. You explain the plan in a few clipped sentences, the chimney in the cliff face, the escape upward. We cannot go back the way we came. The flowers, she nods, her face grim. She understands. Turning to the others, she becomes a leader. Her voice is no longer a whisper, but a firm, commanding hiss. Listen to me. Hunwolf is here. He has cleared a path for us. But we must be silent. We must be strong. We move now, or we die here. Her words, and the sight of you, a legendary warrior from their own village standing there alive, acts like a jolt of electricity. Hope, a long extinguished ember, begins to glow again in their vacant eyes. You begin to organize them, a process made frantic by the ticking clock in your head. You find a half-full water skin and give it to the weakest captives. You help an old man to his feet. Every passing second feels like a stolen breath. It's an oddly domestic scene, organizing people for a trip. If you ignore the fact that the trip is a desperate scramble for life out of a monster's lair, this is a commonality of human survival. In the midst of the most extraordinary horror, the mundane, practical tasks must still be done. You must still put one foot in front of the other. As you get the last of the captives to their feet, you notice something at the very back of the cave, almost hidden in the deepest shadows. A small, dark object. You go to it, curious. It is a key. A large, ornate key made of a strange, black, non-metallic substance that feels warm to the touch. It was clearly not made by human hands. It must be the master's. Why is it here? Perhaps this cave is more than just a holding pen. Perhaps it's a lockbox for something even more valuable. Historians debate the nature of ancient locks and keys, how much they represented real security versus symbolic power. This key feels like both. A chill runs down your spine. For a moment, you are tempted to leave it, but some deep instinct makes you pick it up and shove it into your belt pouch. Knowledge is power, and so is a key to an unknown door. "Hunwolf, we are ready," Gudrun whispers from the cave entrance. You turn your back on the mysteries of the cave. They don't matter now. Only survival matters. You lead the small, tattered column of survivors out from under the vine curtain and into the ghastly twilight of the valley. The brute's body is hidden. The silence is unbroken. You guide them away from the cave and along the base of the cliff toward the fissure you spotted, your escape route. The garden seems to be slumbering. The crimson flowers are still, their mouths closed. For a brief, insane moment, it feels like you might actually make it. And that is when a low, rustling sound echoes through the valley. It's not a whisper of wind. It is the sound you heard before. The sound the master makes when it communicates. And it is answered not by a single grunt, but by a low, collective hissing that seems to rise from all around you. The flowers are waking up. The collective hiss from the crimson flowers is a sound that curdles the blood. It's not a sound of aggression, not yet. It's a sound of awareness, of 1,000 silent eyes all turning to stare at you at once. The jig is up. The alarms have been tripped. Your desperate, silent escape has just turned into a frantic, noisy scramble. To the cliffs, run, you roar, the command ripping through the fragile silence. You shove Gudrun and the captives ahead of you, pointing toward the dark fissure that represents your only hope of survival. The dazed, shuffling walk of the survivors turns into a clumsy, stumbling run, their terror lending a brief, frantic strength to their exhausted limbs. You turn to face the garden, planting your feet and raising your axe. You are the rear guard, the shepherd protecting his flock. The valley, which was so still, is now alive with a horrifying, silent motion. The snake-like stalks of the blood-red flowers are bending, turning, their heavy, carnivorous heads all swiveling to face your small group of fleeing humans. They don't just sense you now. They see you, and they are hungry. Hunwolf! Gudrun screams your name, her voice tight with terror, but she doesn't stop. She herds the others toward the rock face, pushing and pulling them along. And then the robed master appears. It doesn't walk from the depths of the valley. It seems to simply resolve out of the gloom, standing directly between your fleeing people and their escape route. It stands there, impossibly tall and still, its cowled head tilted slightly as if in curiosity. The silence that radiates from it is more terrifying than any war cry. The captives falter, crying out in despair, their path blocked by this silent, skeletal figure. Keep going. Go around it, you bellow, but you know it's hopeless. They are trapped between the awakening garden and its master. This is it. The final confrontation. There is no more stealth, no more cunning plans. There is only you, your axe, and the eldritch horror that commands this nightmare place. You charge. It is not a charge of tactical advantage. It is a charge of pure, desperate rage, a final, defiant roar against the darkness. You run straight at the robed figure, your powerful legs eating up the ground, a bellow of raw fury tearing from your throat. Your only thought is to draw its attention, to be the target, to buy your people a few more precious seconds. As you charge, the master raises one of its white, multi-jointed hands. It does not seem alarmed. A low, rustling sound emanates from its cowl, and the two crimson flowers closest to you respond instantly. Their stalks whip through the air with terrifying speed, trying to cut you off. Their great red maws open wide, the needle-like stamens glistening. They are trying to shepherd you, to herd you directly into the master's grasp. You don't break stride. One flower lunges, and you bring your axe around in a great sweeping arc. The blade meets the thick, pale stalk with a solid crunch. It doesn't sever it completely, but the blow is powerful enough to make the plant recoil, its head thrashing like a wounded snake. A foul, greenish ichor sprays from the gash. The other flower you dodge, its sticky, tongue-like appendage whipping past your head with a faint whoosh, so close you can feel the air move. You are through. You are upon the master. It hasn't moved an inch, seemingly confident in its floral bodyguards. An arrogant mistake. Your axe, still wet with greenish plant blood, swings for its cowled head. The master moves with a speed that is simply impossible. It doesn't dodge so much as flow out of the way, its robed form seeming to ripple and reform a few feet to the left. Your axe, missing its target, smashes into the rock of the cliff face with a shower of sparks that momentarily blinds you. The impact sends a jarring shock up your arm. Before you can recover your balance, the master strikes. Not with a fist or a weapon, but with its mind. You don't feel a physical blow, but a wave of pure psychic force slams into your consciousness. It is a feeling of absolute crushing despair. It's as if every failure, every fear, every moment of weakness you have ever experienced in both your lives, the frail sickness of the modern man, the agony of seeing your village burn, is amplified 1,000 times and driven into your soul like a nail. It's an attack on your very will to live. All across the world, cultures have believed in the evil eye, the power of a malevolent gaze to cause misfortune or injury. This is the reality behind that superstition, a focused projection of sheer will and alien hatred. Your knees buckle. The mighty strength drains from your limbs. The axe feels impossibly heavy. Through the fog of psychic pain, you see the master raise its hands again. It intends to finish you, but then, a flash of movement, Gudrun. She didn't flee with the others. Armed with the brute's crude, heavy club, she charges in, her red hair flying, a scream of pure fury on her lips. She swings the club at the master's back. The blow connects with a dry, cracking sound, like a dead branch snapping. The psychic assault on your mind wavers. The master staggers, turning slowly to face this new, insignificant gnat. For the first time, you hear a true sound from it, a high-pitched, sizzling hiss of what can only be annoyance. It raises a hand, and one of the thick vines snaking along the ground rears up like a cobra, wrapping around Gudrun's ankle and throwing her to the ground. The attack, however, gave you the second you needed. The fog in your mind clears, replaced by the white-hot fire of protective rage. You are on your feet again. You see Gudrun on the ground, the vine tightening around her. The master stands over her. Your thoughts narrow down to a single point. It must be a living thing. And living things can die. There is an old Norse belief, a grim piece of battle wisdom, that every man has a fylgja, a spirit double. To kill the man, you must sometimes strike at the spirit. You look at the master's shadowy form, and at the ground beneath it. Its shadow. Is that its vulnerability? No, too fanciful. What about that key you found? The key. A key implies a lock. A lock implies a heart, a center. The alien creature seems to not have a physical heart to stab. A moment of weird realization hits you. This whole garden is its body, its life force. An attack on the garden might be the only way. Wait. The key. As the master looms over Gudrun, you see something. Tucked into the folds of its robe, at its waist, is a lock. A black, non-metallic lock. A perfect match for the key in your pouch. This is insane. It's a ludicrous long shot, but it's the only one you have. As the master focuses on the downed Gudrun, you lunge. Not with your axe, but with your free hand. You bull rush it, driving your shoulder into its thin frame, sending it stumbling back. In that chaotic moment of collision, your hand finds the key from your pouch. With a desperate, fumbling prayer to every god you've ever heard of, you jam the key into the lock on its robes and twist. The effect is instantaneous and catastrophic. The lock clicks open, and from the master's body, a blinding flash of white light erupts, accompanied by a deafening, tearing shriek that is a violation of both sound and sanity. The white light that erupts from the master's core is not just bright. It's a physical force, a shock wave of pure energy that hurls you backward. You land hard on the spongy moss, the breath knocked from your lungs, your vision a swimming chaos of black and white spots. The unearthly shriek that accompanied it slices through the valley, a sound that feels like it's peeling the flesh from your bones. But you are alive, and as your vision clears, you see the epicenter of that blast. The master is gone, utterly, completely gone. There is no body, no ash, only a lingering shimmer in the air, and a faint, acrid smell, like ozone and burnt parchment. The mysterious black key lies on the ground where it fell, looking inert and unimportant. It seems the key wasn't to a door, but to its very life force. A self-destruct mechanism, perhaps, or a release of the alien energy that animated its form. A dead man's switch. You'll probably never know for sure. Some questions, especially the truly ancient ones, are not meant to have answers. Historians are still stumped by the purpose of the Baghdad battery, a 2,000-year-old clay pot that could have functioned as a primitive galvanic cell. Some mysteries just remain mysteries. The death of the master sends a cataclysmic tremor through its domain. The entire valley shudders as if in a death agony. The living garden dies with its gardener. The blood-red flowers, which had been turning toward you with such menace, suddenly wither. Their proud, serpentine stalks tremble and then collapse, their crimson heads hitting the ground with a wet, deflating sound. The fleshy petals turn a sickly brown, curling in on themselves like burning paper. The thick, pulsing vines that snake across the ground go limp and dark, their faint inner light extinguished in an instant. The entire grotesque ecosystem cascades into a rapid, silent decay. Gudrun, freed from the now limp vine, pushes herself up from the ground, her face a mask of awestruck terror and relief. She scrambles over to you, helping you to your feet. "Hunwolf, what was that?" she asks, her voice trembling. "The end of it," you manage to rasp, your throat raw. You look at the dying valley. The other captives are huddled near the base of the fissure, staring in mute horror and wonder at the devastation. You are all alive. Against all odds, you have survived. You don't know it, but your small band is like the crew of the Mary Celeste, the famous ghost ship found adrift and deserted in the Atlantic in 1872. Survivors of a bizarre and inexplicable event that no one else will ever truly understand. There is no time to celebrate. "Up," you command, your voice regaining its strength. "Before something else wakes up." You shepherd your ragged flock to the fissure in the cliff. It's a difficult climb, a near vertical chimney of black, greasy rock. but it is a ladder out of hell. You go first, testing each handhold and foothold, calling down instructions. Gudrun comes last, helping the weakest, her voice a constant stream of encouragement and commands. One by one, they make the agonizing ascent. Hands are raw and bleeding, muscles scream in protest, but fear and a desperate, newfound hope are powerful fuel. Finally, gasping for breath, the last of them pulls himself over the ledge. You are back on the bleak, gray plain. You look down one last time into the valley. It is a dead place now, a sunken grave filled with the rotting carcasses of its unnatural flora, the shadows already seeming to reclaim it. You turn your back on it and do not look again. The journey back is a hazy, grueling dream. You travel north, a small, sad procession moving through the wilderness. You are the provider, the hunter, the guard. You find food and water. You stand watch while they sleep the sleep of the utterly broken and exhausted. Gudrun is your lieutenant, her spirit, the binding force that keeps the small group from collapsing into despair. Slowly, day by day, you leave the unnatural world behind and re-enter the world of men. The familiar pines and clean, cold air of Nordheim feel like a benediction, a return to sanity. You are not the same man who left. You have been to the edge of reality and looked into the abyss. You carry the weight of that knowledge in the haunted depths of your eyes. You have found what you sought, but lost a part of yourself in the process. The memory blurs now, the sharp edges softening. The feeling of Gudrun's hand in yours, the weight of your axe, the biting cold. It all begins to fade, like a dream upon waking. The hard-won strength drains from your limbs. The vibrant, savage world of ice and steel recedes, its colors washing out. The cold, crisp air is replaced by a familiar, temperature-controlled stillness. The scent of pine and wood smoke gives way to the clean, sterile smell of antiseptic. A dull, persistent ache throbs behind your eyes. An old, unwelcome friend returned. With a deep sigh, you open your eyes. You are back. You are in the soft, adjustable bed, propped against the pillows. The sheets are cool and smooth. Outside the window, the distant roar of traffic hums along. A sound that once seemed alien and intrusive, but now feels normal, solid. You look at your hands lying on the sheet. They are pale, thin, the skin almost translucent. These are not the scarred, calloused hands of a killer. They are the hands of a sick man, a modern man, James Allison. Was it all just a dream? A fever-induced hallucination? A last, grand fantasy concocted by a dying mind? But then, as your gaze drifts to the small bedside table, you see it. Tucked next to a glass of water and a bottle of pills is a small, tarnished silver locket shaped like a swan. You don't remember putting it there. You don't remember ever seeing it before in this life. With a trembling hand, you reach out and pick it up. The metal is cold against your skin. Your fingers, frail and clumsy now, fumble with the catch. When you open it, your breath catches in your throat. On one side is a tiny lock of flaxen blonde hair, and on the other, a miniature, crudely painted image of a woman with a mane of fiery red hair, her eyes blazing with a fierce, indomitable spirit. An echo across millennia, a love that even time could not erase. And so the memory fades, leaving you there in the quiet stillness of your room, the cool weight of the silver locket, a strange and solid anchor to a life lived long, long ago. The frantic desperation of the chase, the mind-bending horror of the garden, the triumphant, desperate climb to freedom. It all settles now, not as a sharp-edged terror, but as a deep, resonant echo in the quietest chambers of your soul. The ghosts of Hunwolf and Gudrun, once so vivid and immediate, recede into the mists of time, their story told, their love reaffirmed against a backdrop of cosmic dread. You are no longer the brawny, golden-haired warrior, but the weary man, James Allison, left to ponder the impossible weight of what you remember. Was it a dream? Was it a flicker of some ancestral, racial memory? A story carried not in books, but in the very fiber of your being? Or was it, somehow, all real? As you lie there, drifting toward a more normal, dreamless sleep, the questions don't seem to matter as much as the feeling, the undeniable, lingering warmth of a love that was strong enough to survive a nightmare, a love powerful enough to leave a whisper of its existence, like a pressed flower, waiting for you across a chasm of countless centuries. And in that quiet reassurance, perhaps, there is a peace that a warrior's life could never provide. Let the story settle. Let the images soften and blur. And let the gentle rhythm of your own breathing carry you now into a peaceful and well-deserved rest.